The thing nobody tells you about fame is that it comes with a lot of temptation. For these 20 R&B legends and stars, that temptation was too much. They had loving partners, but they risked it all for a moment of weakness, or in some cases, years of deception. One even wrote a whole album explaining why he did it. 1. Eric Benet. In the early 2000s, it seemed like R&B singer Eric Benet and movie star Halle Berry were the ultimate Hollywood power couple. They were talented, good-looking, and seemed head over heels in love. They got married in 2001, and many people looked at them as proof that Hollywood romances could work. Halle Berry was at the peak of her career, having just won an Oscar. Eric Benet was a successful neo-soul singer. Life looked perfect. But here's the kicker. It was all a mirage. Just 2 years later, in 2003, the couple suddenly announced they were separating. Fans were floored. What in the world could have happened? The truth slowly started to leak out. Reports surfaced that Eric had been unfaithful, not just once, but multiple times. It was a pattern of behavior he couldn't seem to stop. The fallout was massive. Eric Benet actually checked himself into a 4-week program. Believe it or not, it was for an addiction to, well, messing around. He later tried to walk back these claims, but the damage was done. He had been unfaithful to one of the most beloved and famous women on the planet. To put it mildly, it was a huge fumble. Their split was finalized, and Eric became, for many, the poster child for a man who had it all and threw it all away. Losing Halle Berry is a big fumble, but our next star, a member of a legendary boy band, made his wife endure his straying for years before it all went public in a very messy way. 2. Shawn Stockman. If you grew up in the 90s, you definitely know the group Boyz II Men. They were the kings of the R&B ballad. Songs like I'll Make Love to You and End of the Road were played at every school dance. Shawn Stockman, with his smooth vocals, was a key part of that success. He projected the image of a perfect gentleman. He had been married to his wife, Sharonda Jones, for many years, and they had a family. But not all things are what they seem. In 2016, a video suddenly popped up on social media, and it wasn't a music video. It was Shawn looking right at the camera, looking upset and very serious. He started talking, and people couldn't believe what they were hearing. He was making a public apology to his wife. He admitted right there for the whole world to see that he had been unfaithful. He said he had done things outside his marriage and that he was apologizing for the pain he had caused. The thing nobody tells you is that this wasn't about one single mistake. Rumors had been swirling for a while, and his video seemed to confirm that he had a history of straying. It was, to put it mildly, a shocking confession from a man who built his career on singing love songs. He and his wife are still together, but it was a very public stain on his perfect image. A public apology is one thing, but what about a star so big? He had to answer for his actions on an entire album dedicated to his superstar wife? 3. Jay-Z. We now move to music royalty. Jay-Z and Beyoncé are not just a couple. They are an empire. They are music's first billionaire couple, a true definition of a power partnership. For years, they were very private, only showing the world a perfect, united front. They were untouchable. Then in 2014, a grainy security video leaked. The world was stunned. The video showed Beyoncé's sister, Solange, yelling at and swinging at Jay-Z in an elevator after the Met Gala, while Beyoncé stood by. People scratched their heads. What could make someone that angry? Rumors started flying. The big rumor? Jay-Z had been unfaithful. It was just talk, until Beyoncé dropped a surprise album in 2016 called Lemonade. The album was a masterpiece, but it was also full of songs about a woman dealing with a partner who had cheated. The lyrics were raw and personal. The whole world learned the phrase, Becky with the good hair. It was a cultural earthquake. Jay-Z himself finally responded on his own album, 444. He admitted his failings and talked about how he almost lost his family. He hardly knew what to say. It was a rare public look at the cracks in a perfect image, all turned into art. Jay-Z and Beyoncé worked it out. But our next singer admitted he had a long history of cheating, just not with his famous wife. 4. John Legend. When you think of the perfect modern husband, many people think of John Legend. His song, All of Me, is one of the biggest wedding songs of all time. It's a song he wrote for his wife, model, and TV star, Chrissy Teigen. Their relationship is very public. They post funny and loving things about each other all the time. They seem to have the ideal supportive partnership. But here's a wow factor you might not know. John Legend himself has openly admitted that before he met Chrissy, he was a serial cheater. He was on a podcast in 2020 and was very honest about his past. He said that in almost every relationship he had before Chrissy, he had been unfaithful. What many overlooked is that he got away with it because he wasn't the huge star he is today. He was just a guy, a musician, and he was, in his own words, selfish. The thing nobody tells you is that he credits Chrissy with changing him. He said that when he met her, he knew that he had to be serious. He realized he couldn't get away with that kind of behavior with her. He knew he had to level up or he would lose her. So, while he's a great husband now, he admits his past was a whole different story. John Legend says he changed his ways. But our next star has been accused by multiple wives over and over of the exact same behavior, creating a pattern that's impossible to ignore. 5. Ne-Yo. Ne-Yo is another R&B star who built a career on being a smooth gentleman. He wrote hits for himself, like So Sick and Miss Independent. He also wrote giant hits for other stars, including Beyoncé's Irreplaceable. He was seen as a man who understood women. He was married to his first wife, Monyetta Shaw, and they had 2 children. But here's the kicker. That relationship ended, and Monyetta later said it was because he wanted to end things. Later, he married Crystal Renee in 2016. They also had children and seemed very happy. They even had a big, fancy ceremony in 2022 to renew their vows, talking about how strong their love was. It was all a show. Just a few months after renewing their vows, Crystal filed for a split. The reasons were shocking. She went on social media and lit him up. She claimed he had been unfaithful to her for their entire 8-year relationship. She said he was sharing his life with numerous other women. She even said he had recently fathered a child with someone else. To put it mildly, it was an explosive end. It showed a pattern of behavior that went back years from one relationship to the next. Ne-Yo's split was messy, but our next R&B legend was involved in a love triangle so famous it became part of R&B history itself. 6. Usher is, without a doubt, a legend. From his early days as a teen star to his massive Confessions album, he has been a dominant force in music. The Confessions album itself was full of songs about a man who had messed around and even had a child with another woman. Fans loved the drama. What many overlooked is that the drama wasn't just in the songs. In the early 2000s, Usher was in a very high-profile relationship with Rozanda Chili Thomas, a member of the supergroup TLC. They were a beautiful couple, and everyone expected them to get married. But the relationship suddenly blew up in 2003. Why? Well, Chili herself made it very clear. She went public and said that Usher had been unfaithful. She said he admitted to cheating, and that was the reason they broke up. Believe it or not, this was right around the time his Confessions album came out. Many people wondered how much of that album was based on his real life with Chili. It was a case of life imitating art, or maybe art imitating life. He's had other relationship dramas since, but his split with Chili was the one that set the stage. Usher's Confessions album was a hit. Our next star, however, had a story so dark that his behavior went far beyond just being unfaithful. 7. R. Kelly. R. Kelly was once one of the most powerful and successful R&B artists on the planet. His songs like I Believe I Can Fly were global anthems. He was a hit-making machine. He was also married twice. His first marriage to the late singer Aaliyah was very controversial and was ended quickly. His second marriage was to a dancer named Andrea, or Drea, Kelly. But behind the music, there was a very dark and troubled story. For years, rumors swirled about his behavior. His wife Drea finally left him, and years later, she came forward with her story. She described a life that was, to put it mildly, terrifying. She said she was controlled and isolated. And, on top of all that, she said he was constantly unfaithful. She said he was always messing around with fans and other young women. What many overlooked at the time was that this wasn't just standard celebrity cheating. It was part of a much larger, more sinister pattern of behavior. His infidelity was just the tip of the iceberg. The world would later find out about his truly terrible actions, which landed him in serious trouble for the rest of his life. Kelly's story is dark. Our next star's story is also full of tragedy, as he and his megastar wife battled personal demons in the public eye. 8. Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown was the original bad boy of R&B. He was a star with New Edition, and then he became an even bigger star as a solo artist with hits like My Prerogative. His marriage in 1992 to pop and R&B queen Whitney Houston was one of the biggest celebrity events of the decade. They were a true power couple, but they were also very volatile. Their relationship was nonstop news in the tabloids. They both struggled with serious substance issues, which put a huge strain on their marriage. But that wasn't the only problem. Bobby Brown himself has been very open, especially in his books and interviews, that he was not a faithful husband. He admitted to multiple affairs during his marriage to Whitney. He would be on tour and would mess around with other women. He often blamed the rock star lifestyle, but at the end of the day, it was a choice. This behavior added so much fuel to an already explosive fire. Their love story, which started so bright, became a warning for many about the pressures of fame. The constant fighting, the substance issues, and the infidelity all combined to create a truly tragic story. Bobby Brown was a product of the 90s R&B scene, but our next star, a more modern singer, got a reputation for breaking hearts right in his song lyrics. 9. Trey Songz. Trey Songz, also known as Trigga, built his entire brand on being a smooth, romantic, and very desirable man. His songs and music videos were all about attracting women. He had a huge female fan base and was one of the biggest male R&B stars of the 2000s and 2010s. He was linked to many famous women, but he never seemed to settle down. Here's the kicker. His reputation for being a ladies' man wasn't just an image. It was his reality. Over the years, numerous women he was linked to came out with stories. A common theme? He couldn't stay faithful. He was never married, but he was in several long-term relationships. His ex-girlfriends, including model Lori Harvey, often had mysterious ends to their relationships. Other women he was involved with would hint online that he was talking to multiple people at once. Leaked DMs and social media posts often showed him trying to connect with many different women. For Trey Songz, the player image wasn't just an act for his music. It was his real life, and it left a trail of rumored broken hearts. Trey Songz had a reputation. Our next star's cheating scandal was so big it involved 2 other superstars and became a global news story. 10. Chris Brown burst onto the scene as a wholesome teen singer. He was called the next Michael Jackson, but his career and personal life have been full of, to put it mildly, very low points. His most famous relationship was with pop and R&B star Rihanna. That ended in 2009 after a terrible incident of violence. After that, he got into a long-term, on-again, off-again relationship with a model named Karrueche Tran. Their relationship was a constant roller coaster, and a big reason was his inability to be faithful. Here's the thing nobody tells you. He was often caught in the middle. He was seen with Rihanna while he was supposed to be with Karrueche. Then he would be back with Karrueche. The final straw, though, was a massive shock. In 2015, news broke that Chris Brown had a child. This was news to everyone, including his girlfriend, Karrueche. He had been unfaithful with another woman, Nia Guzman, and she had given birth to his daughter, Royalty. Karrueche found out about the child from the media, not from Chris. She immediately ended the relationship for good. Chris Brown's drama was public. Our next star, a hip-hop mogul, had a very complicated love life that spanned decades with the same woman. 11. Diddy Sean Diddy Combs, also known as Puff Daddy, is one of the most powerful figures in music. He built the bad boy empire and is a billionaire mogul. His most significant and long-lasting relationship was with Kim Porter. They were together on and off for over 13 years and had 3 children together. They were never married, but they were a family. However, their relationship was famously open at times, though not always by mutual agreement. Diddy was known for having relationships with other women, even while he was publicly with Kim. What many overlooked was how much this hurt Kim. In 2007, she finally left him for good. The reason? She found out he had fathered another child with another woman, Sarah Chapman, while they were still together. Believe it or not, his daughter Chance was born just 5 months before his and Kim's twin daughters. Kim said she was tired of the disrespect. Though they remained close friends and co-parents until her sad passing in 2018, his constant straying was the reason their romantic relationship ended. Diddy's situation was complicated. Our next star's cheating was so public that it was a main storyline on a popular reality TV show. 12. Fabolous. Fabolous is a rapper with a long and successful career, known for his smooth lyrics and hits that often featured R&B singers. For years, his primary relationship has been with Emily B., a shoe designer and a star on the reality show Love and Hip Hop. Their relationship has been a central part of the show, and if you watch the show, you know what that means. It means all their drama was on full display. A major repeating theme was Fabolous being unfaithful. Emily was constantly seen on camera, heartbroken, hearing rumors about him being with other women. The show made it clear this wasn't a one-time thing. It was a constant struggle in their relationship. He was seen in pictures with other women, and there were always stories coming out. It was a tough watch. Despite the public humiliation and the constant fighting they showed on TV, the couple has stayed together and has had more children. But his reputation for straying was cemented by his own reality TV appearances. Fabolous's drama was on TV. Our next star, a legendary rapper, had his marriage end when his R&B singer wife called him out in a very public way. 13. Nas is a hip-hop god. He's considered one of the greatest lyricists of all time. In 2005, he married R&B singer and chef Kelis. They were a hip-hop and R&B power couple. Their styles were so different, but they seemed to work. They had a son together and were a staple in the music world. But in 2009, when Kelis was 7 months pregnant with their son, she filed for a split. Fans were shocked. It seemed so sudden. For a long time, the reasons were kept private. Years later, Kelis finally opened up. And, to put it mildly, she did not hold back. She described their marriage as being very difficult and full of intense fights. And she also confirmed the long-standing rumors. She said that Nas was unfaithful. She said he was straying and that she knew about it. The thing nobody tells you is that she said his infidelity was a big part of why their marriage fell apart. It was a sad end to what seemed like a perfect hip-hop and R&B union. Nas and Kelis had a messy split. Our next story involves another music power couple where a producer left his wife for one of the biggest singers in the world. 14. Swizz Beatz. Swizz Beatz is a super producer. He's the man behind huge hits for stars like DMX, Jay-Z, and Beyoncé. He was married to R&B singer Mashonda from 2004 to 2010. They had a son together and were a known couple in the music industry. Here's the kicker. Their marriage ended in a storm of controversy. Why? Because Swizz Beatz started a new relationship with one of the most famous women in the world, Alicia Keys. The timeline was messy. Mashonda later wrote a very public open letter. She claimed that Swizz and Alicia had started their relationship while Swizz and Mashonda were still married. She accused them of carrying on a secret affair that broke up her family. It was a huge scandal. Alicia and Swizz denied this, saying his marriage was already over. But Mashonda stuck to her story. Today, Swizz Beatz and Alicia Keys are married. And in a wow factor twist, all three of them, Swizz, Alicia, and Mashonda, have since worked things out and have a healthy, blended family relationship. Swizz Beatz's new relationship started a scandal. Our next star isn't a singer at all, but a comedian whose cheating scandal was truly shocking. 15. Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart is one of the biggest comedians on the planet. He's not an R&B singer, but he is a huge part of the hip-hop and R&B celebrity world. He worked hard to build a new family man image with his second wife, Eniko Parrish, after his first marriage ended. Then, in 2017, it all came crashing down. A very suggestive video of Kevin with another woman in Las Vegas surfaced. This wasn't just a rumor, it was real. And to make the situation 1,000 times worse, his wife Eniko was 8 months pregnant at the time. The fallout was immediate. Kevin was the target of an extortion attempt over the video. He was forced to go on social media and make a public apology to his pregnant wife and his kids. He admitted he had made a bad error in judgment and was not perfect. He later revealed the entire painful process in his documentary series. You can see the raw, difficult conversations he had with Eniko. It was, to put it mildly, an intense look at the price of fame and infidelity. Kevin Hart was extorted. But our next star, a member of a huge rap group, just kept getting caught by fans on social media over and over again. 16. Offset is a member of the superstar rap group Migos. His relationship with the biggest female rapper in the world, Cardi B, has been public from day one. They got secretly married in 2017 and had their daughter, Culture, in 2018. But their relationship has been a complete roller coaster, and the main reason is Offset's cheating. In late 2017, videos leaked showing Offset in a hotel room with other women. It was a huge scandal. Cardi B was crushed, but decided to stay with him. It didn't stop. For the next few years, it seemed like every few months, a new rumor or new set of DMs would surface, showing Offset trying to connect with other women. Cardi B even filed for a split in 2020, saying she was tired of the fighting and not seeing eye to eye. While she didn't name cheating that time, their history made everyone assume. They got back together, but Offset has a reputation that he just can't seem to shake. Offset kept getting caught. But our next star, an athlete, has a cheating pattern so bad, it's become a global running joke. 17. Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson is a professional basketball player, but he is world famous for one thing: his relationship with Khloe Kardashian. Like his NBA friend Lamar Odom, Tristan's life is a constant story in the hip-hop and R&B celebrity world. Here is the thing nobody tells you. His pattern of cheating is almost unbelievable. In 2018, the celebrity website TMZ released videos of Tristan with other women. This news broke just 2 days before Khloe gave birth to their daughter, True. He was literally caught cheating while his partner was in the hospital about to give birth. They stayed together. Then, in 2019, he was caught again. This time, it was at a party with Khloe's sister's best friend, Jordyn Woods. The family was ripped apart, but believe it or not, they still got back together. The final straw came in 2021. It was revealed that Tristan had fathered another child with another woman, Maralee Nichols, while he was supposedly back together with Khloe. It was a pattern of disrespect that, to put it mildly, shocked the world. Tristan's actions were shocking, but our next star wasn't just in the tabloids. His affairs led to one of the most expensive splits in sports history. 18. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer of all time. He's not an R&B star, but his scandal was so huge it crossed all lines of pop culture. For years, Tiger had a perfect, squeaky clean image. He was a billion-dollar athlete with a beautiful wife, Elin Nordegren, and 2 young children. It all came crashing down on Thanksgiving night in 2009. There was a strange, low-speed car crash outside his Florida mansion. Soon after, a story broke about him having an affair with a nightclub manager. Then the floodgates opened. It wasn't just one woman. It was 2, then 5, then 10. The final count was staggering. He was linked to over a dozen different women from all walks of life all over the country. He had been living a complete secret life. The fallout was total. He lost his marriage in a split that reportedly cost him over $100 million. He lost all his major sponsors, and for a while, he lost his entire career. He had to check into a facility for addiction. Tiger's list of affairs was long, but our next star, a pop singer with R&B-style hits, got exposed not by tabloids, but by social media DMs. 19. Adam Levine. Adam Levine is the lead singer of the band Maroon 5. He's famous for his R&B-influenced voice on hits like Sunday Morning and This Love. He was also a longtime judge on the TV show The Voice. He had a reputation as a serial dater of models, but he finally settled down in 2014 and married supermodel Behati Prinsloo. They had 2 children and seemed to be the perfect, happy family. In 2022, they announced they were expecting their 3rd child. But just as that happy news came out, a huge scandal dropped. An Instagram model named Sumner Stroh came forward. She released screenshots of her direct messages, her DMs, with Adam Levine. The messages showed him flirting with her and being very inappropriate. Then more women came forward with similar stories and more cringy DMs. The wow factor? The most bizarre part was that Adam had allegedly asked the first woman, Sumner, if he could name his new baby after her. It was a true head-scratcher that blew up his family man image. Adam Levine's DMs were embarrassing, but our final story is about another athlete who, like Tristan Thompson, couldn't stay faithful to a Kardashian and admitted it all. 20. Lamar Odom. Lamar Odom was a 2-time NBA champion and a very popular player, but he became a global superstar when he married Khloe Kardashian in 2009, just 1 month after they met. Their reality show, Khloe and Lamar, was a huge hit. It showed them as a quirky, loving, and happy couple. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart. It was no secret that Lamar was struggling with serious substance issues. But what many people didn't know at the time, but would later find out, was that he was also a serial cheater. In his 2019 book, Darkness to Light, Lamar laid it all bare. He admitted that he had been unfaithful to Khloe for most of their marriage. He said he had full-blown affairs and that he couldn't keep track of how many women there were. He said his addiction to, being with other women was something he couldn't control. He even wrote that Chloe caught him at a hotel with multiple women. It was a sad, dark confession that showed the perfect reality TV marriage was anything but.
One of the most famous soul singers in the world had to rely on government health care to get by in her final days. This wasn't a one-time story. It's a pattern of shocking poverty that has plagued some of the most gifted R&B musicians in history. We're counting down 20 legends who created timeless music but met a tragic, penniless end. 1. Gregory Coleman. Many people are crazy about a specific 6-second drum solo from 1969. It comes from a song called Amen, Brother by a group called The Winstons. The man playing that incredible funky drum beat was Gregory Coleman. To put it mildly, that solo, known as the Amen break, became one of the most important pieces of recorded sound in history. It was sampled and used to build the foundation of hip-hop and drum and bass music. You have heard it in thousands of songs, from N.W.A. to The Prodigy. So, the guy who created this legendary piece of music must have become a millionaire, right? The tragic truth is the exact opposite. What many overlooked is that Coleman never saw a single penny in royalties for his creation. The song was a B-side, and no one thought much of it at the time. He was just a session musician who was paid a small fee for his time in the studio. As his drum beat was making other people rich, Coleman's life went in another direction. He struggled to find steady work as a musician. Eventually, he found himself without a home, living on the streets of Atlanta, Georgia. The man whose rhythm became the backbone of entire genres of music died broke and homeless in 2006. A British DJ eventually raised over $30,000 for Coleman's estate, but it was far too late for the man himself. From a drummer everyone has heard but almost no one knows, we move to a man who was one of the most famous entertainers in the world. A true superstar who could do it all, yet still ended up owing millions to the tax man. 2. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. was a force of nature. He was a singer, a dancer, an actor, and a comedian. As a key member of the legendary Rat Pack alongside Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, he was the definition of cool. He recorded R&B hits, starred in movies, and was a headliner in Las Vegas for decades. The man was a whirlwind of talent and charisma, and he made a tremendous amount of money during his long career. But the thing nobody tells you is that Sammy had a big problem with spending. He was known for his incredible generosity, often giving lavish gifts and huge amounts of cash to friends, family, and even strangers. He also spent a fortune on his own lifestyle. Unfortunately, he wasn't paying close enough attention to his taxes. For years, he simply didn't pay what he owed to the government. When he passed away in 1990, the world was shocked to learn the truth. Sammy Davis Jr. was in debt to the IRS for over $5 million. That would be more than $11 million today. The debt was so large that his wife had to auction off nearly all of his personal belongings and memorabilia to help pay it down. The man known as Mr. Show Business left behind almost nothing but a massive bill. Sammy's debts came from the taxman. But the next musician's problems came from something much more basic: the heartbreaking inability to see a doctor when he got sick because he simply could not afford it. 3. David Williams. You might not know the name David Williams, but you absolutely know his guitar playing. He was one of the most in-demand session guitarists in the business. His funky rhythmic style was a key ingredient on some of the biggest hits of all time. He played on Michael Jackson's albums Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. He also backed up stars like Madonna, Stevie Nicks, and Aretha Franklin. He was the secret weapon behind countless R&B and soul classics. Session musicians like David are usually paid a flat fee for their work in the studio. They don't get the big royalty checks that the main artists do. While he made a decent living during his peak years, the money wasn't guaranteed to last forever. What many overlooked is that he, like many freelance musicians, did not have health insurance. In the mid-2000s, his health began to fail. He was suffering from high blood pressure, and in 2009, he had a major stroke. Without insurance, he couldn't afford the hospital treatments he desperately needed. His family and friends tried to raise money to help, but it wasn't enough. David Williams, the man whose guitar powered some of the world's greatest hits, passed away at the age of 58, a victim of a system that left him with no resources when he needed them most. Williams played for the biggest stars, but our next artist was one of the biggest stars in the world, a true prince of soul, whose life came to a heartbreaking end inside his own family home. 4. Marvin Gaye. When you think of classic R&B, the name Marvin Gaye is one of the first that comes to mind. He was the soulful voice behind Motown hits like I Heard It Through the Grapevine, What's Going On, and Let's Get It On. He was a musical genius, a handsome and charismatic performer who could write songs that made you dance and songs that made you think. He was, without a doubt, one of the most important artists of his generation. But behind that smooth voice was a man in deep turmoil. The thing nobody tells you is that Marvin Gaye spent years struggling with his own personal demons. He battled with serious substance abuse issues that cost him a fortune. He also went through 2 very expensive divorces that drained his finances. To make matters worse, he was in a constant battle with the IRS over unpaid taxes. By the early 1982, his financial situation was a complete disaster. He declared bankruptcy and, to escape his debts, he moved to Europe for a few years. Even after a successful comeback with the hit song Sexual Healing, he was still broke. When he passed away tragically in 1984, his estate was found to be insolvent. This means he had more debts than assets. The Prince of Motown had no will, no life insurance, and no savings, leaving behind a legacy of brilliant music but a financial catastrophe. Marvin's troubles tore his family apart, but for the next legendary voice, her troubles followed her to the very end, leaving her with a shocking debt that was bigger than most people's lifetime earnings. 5. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was known simply as The Voice, and for good reason. Her powerful, soaring vocals were a gift to the world, making her one of the best-selling artists of all time. Hits like I Will Always Love You and I Wanna Dance with Somebody turned her into a global icon. She sold over 200 million records worldwide, starred in hit movies like The Bodyguard, and earned a fortune that most people can only dream of. You see, for all her incredible success, Whitney was fighting a long and difficult battle with substance abuse. This struggle had a devastating impact not only on her amazing voice, but also on her finances. Her unhealthy habits were incredibly expensive to maintain. On top of that, as her reliability wavered, she started to lose out on high-paying gigs and endorsements. She was still spending money like a superstar, but the superstar income was no longer flowing in. When she tragically passed away in 2012, the world was stunned to learn the state of her finances. Reports claimed that Whitney Houston was not just broke. She was in massive debt. Some sources estimated that she owed as much as $20 million to her record label and other creditors. The woman who had once signed a $100 million contract had an estate that was worth less than her enormous debts. Whitney's voice was a global treasure, but our next singer's voice was one of the first to truly define the sounds of jazz and blues, yet she passed away with less money in her bank account than a single movie ticket costs today. 6. Billie Holiday. Lady Day, as she was known, was a true musical pioneer. Billie Holiday's voice was one of a kind. It was full of emotion, pain, and a deep, soulful beauty. She didn't have the powerful range of other singers, but she had a way of phrasing a lyric that was pure genius. Songs like Strange Fruit and God Bless the Child were not just hits, they were powerful social statements. She changed the art of singing forever, but her life was one of constant struggle. The thing nobody tells you is that from a young age, she faced incredible hardship. As an adult, she fell into a pattern of substance abuse that would follow her for the rest of her life. She also got into terrible, abusive relationships with men who took advantage of her and stole her money. To make matters worse, she was relentlessly targeted by government authorities for her personal habits. She earned a lot of money in her career, but it was quickly taken by managers, agents, and her own expensive lifestyle. When she was on her deathbed in a New York hospital in 1959, she was under arrest, with police guarding her room. After she passed away, the world learned the heartbreaking truth. Billie Holiday had just 70 cents in her bank account. All she had to her name was $750 in cash that was found strapped to her leg. Billie Holiday was a victim of her time, but our next artist became the biggest star on the entire planet, a true king of his genre, yet he was hiding a secret debt so massive it was almost beyond belief. 7. Michael Jackson. He was the king of pop, an artist whose R&B roots helped him become the most famous person on earth. Michael Jackson's album Thriller is the best-selling album of all time. His music, his dancing, and his electrifying stage presence changed pop culture forever. He earned hundreds of millions, possibly even billions, of dollars over his career. He owned a massive ranch called Neverland, filled with amusement park rides and a zoo. He seemed to have limitless wealth. But what many overlooked was his spending. To put it mildly, his lifestyle was extravagant. He spent fortunes on art, antiques, and charity. But there was another, darker side to his expenses. In his later years, Michael faced very serious and very public legal battles. These court cases cost him tens of millions of dollars in legal fees and settlements. At the same time, his income was not what it used to be. The massive stadium tours and record-breaking album sales were behind him. He was borrowing huge sums of money just to maintain his lifestyle and pay his bills. When he passed away in 2009, just before a planned comeback tour, it was revealed that Michael Jackson was in debt to the tune of around $500 million. His estate was initially insolvent, and it took years of careful management and new deals to finally get it back into the black. Michael's spending was the stuff of legend, but the next Queen of Soul's downfall came from a very different kind of struggle, one that left her depending on public assistance during her final days. 8. Etta James. Etta James was the definition of a powerhouse vocalist. Her voice was raw, gritty, and full of soul. She could belt out a rock and roll tune 1 minute and then break your heart with a bluesy ballad the next. Her signature song, At Last, has become one of the most iconic love songs ever recorded. She was a true legend, a Grammy winner, and a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But her life off stage was marked by chaos and struggle. For decades, Etta James fought a fierce battle with substance dependency. This fight not only took a toll on her health, but also on her finances. What many people don't know is that the money she made from her music often went straight to supporting her habits. She also had a reputation for being a difficult artist to work with, which sometimes cost her lucrative opportunities. In her later years, she faced serious health problems that required expensive, round-the-clock medical care. She had not saved enough money to cover these costs. The situation became so dire that the woman with the multi-million-dollar voice had to rely on Medicaid, a government program for those with low income, to pay for her care. When she died in 2012, her sons were fighting in court over control of her very small estate. Etta James had to rely on government help, but our next artist was the daughter of royalty, yet she too found herself in a desperate financial situation after fighting her own personal demons. 9. Natalie Cole. Natalie Cole was born into music royalty. Her father was the legendary Nat King Cole, one of the smoothest and most beloved singers of all time. But Natalie was a star in her own right. She burst onto the R&B scene in the 1970 seconds, with hits like This Will Be an Everlasting Love and Our Love. She had a powerful voice and a commanding stage presence, winning multiple Grammy Awards. The thing nobody tells you is that with fame came immense pressure, and Natalie soon found herself in the grips of a severe addiction. Her personal struggles became very public and nearly destroyed her career and her life. During this dark period, she burned through the fortune she had earned. She later wrote in her autobiography that she spent huge amounts of money to support her habit, leaving her nearly penniless. She managed to make one of the most incredible comebacks in music history with her 1991 album Unforgettable with Love, where she famously sang a duet with her late father's recorded voice. The album was a massive success and made her wealthy once again. However, the years of substance abuse had taken a toll on her health, and she faced expensive medical issues later in life, including a kidney transplant. While she was not destitute when she passed in 2015, the cost of her recovery from addiction and her later health battles had a significant impact on the fortune she had worked so hard to rebuild. Natalie Cole fought hard to regain her life and career, but our next artist, a trailblazing singer and actress, found her career sabotaged and her finances ruined by the very people who were supposed to help her. 10. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was a true trailblazer. She was a stunningly beautiful and incredibly talented singer and actress. She started her career singing in clubs with an R&B and jazz style, but she is best remembered for her acting. In 1954, she became the first African-American woman to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in the movie Carmen Jones. She was a glamorous star who seemed destined for greatness. But in the Hollywood of the 1950 seconds, a black leading lady faced enormous obstacles. What many overlooked is that she was denied many roles because of her race. Her career began to stall. At the same time, her personal life was falling apart. She was the victim of terrible financial advice and abuse. Her managers and advisors mishandled her money, investing it in bad deals that lost her entire fortune. She was forced to declare bankruptcy and lost her beautiful Hollywood home. She tried to make a comeback, but the momentum was gone. In 1965, her life came to a tragic end. She passed away from what was ruled an accidental overdose of medication she was taking for a foot injury. When she died, Dorothy Dandridge, the woman who had once been on the cover of magazines and nominated for an Oscar, was completely broke. Dorothy's story is one of stolen potential, while our next artist was a beloved balladeer whose smooth voice hid his own private health and financial struggles that only came to light near the end. 11. Luther Vandross. When it came to romantic R&B ballads, Luther Vandross was the undisputed king. His voice was like velvet, smooth, rich, and full of emotion. For more than 2 decades, he created an incredible string of hits, including Here and Now, Power of Love, Divided by Love Power, and his famous cover of A House Is Not a Home. He sold over 40 million records and was a constant presence on the radio. He was the voice of love for a whole generation. Luther was a very private person. He rarely discussed his personal life or his health, but behind the scenes, he was dealing with serious health issues. He struggled with his weight for most of his life and had both diabetes and hypertension. These conditions are very expensive to manage over many years. In 2003, he suffered a major stroke that left him in a wheelchair and unable to sing again. The medical costs associated with his care for the last 2 years of his life were enormous. The thing nobody tells you is that while he was still a wealthy man by any normal standard, these hidden health costs and a very generous lifestyle meant that his estate was not as large as people expected. When he passed away in 2005, he left behind a modest estate, much of which was likely used to settle any remaining debts from his extensive medical care. Luther's health issues created hidden debts, but for our next artist, the Ivory Queen of Soul, her debts were much more public, stemming from battles with the very industry that made her a star. 12. Teena Marie. Teena Marie was a one-of-a-kind talent, a white singer who was so soulful that she was signed to the legendary Motown Records. She became known as the Ivory Queen of Soul. she was taken under the wing of funk legend Rick James, and together they created classic R&B hits. On her own, she scored major successes with songs like Lover Girl and Ooh La La La. She was a gifted singer, songwriter, and producer. But Tina was also a fighter. Early in her career, she got into a major legal battle with Motown. She wanted to leave the label, but they refused to release her or release her new music. The case went to court and resulted in a landmark ruling, often called the Tina Marie Law, which made it illegal for a record company to keep an artist under contract without putting out their albums. She won the legal fight. But what many overlooked is that these kinds of battles are incredibly expensive. This, combined with later career ups and downs and the costs of managing her health, left her in a difficult financial position. When she passed away suddenly in 2010, it was reported that she had unresolved debts. The woman who fought for artists' rights found herself another victim of the tough financial realities of the music business. Tina Marie fought the system, but our next artist, the son of another R&B legend, found his finances strained by legal issues of a more personal and familial nature. 13. Gerald Levert. Gerald Levert had R&B music in his blood. He was the son of Eddie Levert, the lead singer of the legendary group The O'Jays. Gerald first found fame as the lead singer of the group Levert, which had hits like Pop, Pop, Pop Goes My Mind. He then launched a very successful solo career, becoming known for his powerful, passionate voice on songs like Baby Hold On To Me and Private Line. He was a talented songwriter and producer, working with many other artists. He made a lot of money and was known for his generous spirit, often helping out friends and family. But that generosity sometimes led to problems. You see, his life was complicated by a series of lawsuits and personal disputes that were a constant drain on his finances. There were paternity suits and other legal entanglements that cost him a great deal of money in legal fees and settlements. These private battles, combined with a lifestyle that included supporting a large extended family, put a major strain on his resources. When he passed away in 2006 from an accidental overdose of prescribed and over-the-counter medications, he was still a major star, but his estate was reportedly facing significant financial strains that surprised many of his fans. Gerald Levert's life was cut short by a tragic accident. But our next artist made a heartbreaking choice after years of battling depression and the financial droughts that came with a stalled career. 14. Phyllis Hyman. Phyllis Hyman was a truly breathtaking performer. She was tall, elegant, and possessed a deep, powerful voice that could handle jazz, soul, and R&B with ease. She was a commanding presence on stage and in the studio. She is best known for hits like You Know How to Love Me and her stunning performance on the song Betcha by Golly Wow with Norman Connors. She was a critical darling and a beloved figure in the soul music community. But the thing nobody tells you is that for much of her life, Phyllis Hyman suffered from severe depression and bipolar disorder. This made the ups and downs of the music industry incredibly difficult for her to handle. When her career hit slow periods and the hit records weren't coming, it had a major impact on her mental health and her finances. She struggled to find consistent work that paid what she was worth. The financial pressure added to her emotional turmoil. She felt undervalued by the music industry and was frustrated by her lack of mainstream success. In 1995, after years of these private battles, she made a tragic and desperate final act. She ended her own life just hours before she was scheduled to perform at the Apollo Theater. In a note she left behind, she wrote, "I'm tired, I'm tired." Her passing revealed a story of an artist who was broken by a business that couldn't see her true value. Phyllis Hyman's story is one of deep emotional and financial pain. Our next artist was also a musical genius, whose mental health struggles contributed to his early and tragic end. 15. Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway was a musical genius. There is no other way to put it. His voice was pure, soulful, and incredibly expressive. He was a brilliant songwriter, a masterful keyboard player, and a gifted arranger. He gave the world timeless songs like A Song for You and The Ghetto. His duets with Roberta Flack, like Where is the Love and The Closer I Get to You, are some of the greatest of all time. But what many overlooked was that Donnie was fighting a serious battle with his mental health. He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, a condition that caused him to have severe bouts of depression and delusions. This made it very difficult for him to handle the pressures of fame and to work consistently. He had to be hospitalized several times. His treatments were expensive, and his inability to tour or record regularly meant his income was unpredictable. His finances suffered greatly as a result. In 1979, at the age of just 33, his life came to a shocking end. He was found on the ground below the 15th floor window of his New York hotel room. While his career was on an upswing at the time, his personal life was still in turmoil, and he left behind debts related to the high cost of his mental health care. Donny Hathaway's struggles were with his own mind, but our next singer faced a different kind of health battle, one that drained all her resources despite having one of the most famous songs of the 1,970 seconds. 16. Minnie Riperton. Minnie Riperton had a voice that was truly an instrument. She was famous for her incredible 5-octave vocal range, which allowed her to hit stunningly high notes in what is known as the whistle register. Her 1,975 hit song, Lovin' You, is a perfect showcase of this amazing talent. The song was a #1 hit all over the world and made her an international star. But just 1 year later, in 1976, she received a devastating diagnosis. She had breast cancer. At the time, the prognosis for this disease was not as hopeful as it is today. You see, Minnie was a fighter. She became one of the first celebrities to speak openly about her diagnosis, becoming a spokesperson for the American Cancer Society. She continued to record and tour, even while undergoing difficult and expensive treatments. In the 1,970 seconds, health insurance was not always great, and the costs of fighting a major illness like cancer could quickly wipe out a person's savings. When she passed away in 1979, at the young age of 31, she had used up most of her fortune paying for her medical care. She left behind a legacy of beautiful music, but very little money. Minnie Riperton's fortune was lost to a health crisis. Our next artist, one half of a legendary Motown duo, also had her life and finances cut short by a tragic illness. 17. Tammy Terrell. Tammy Terrell was a rising star at Motown Records in the 1,960 seconds. She was beautiful, vibrant, and had a voice that was sweet yet strong. She was a successful solo artist, but she became a true legend when she was paired with Marvin Gaye. Together, they recorded some of the most beloved duets in music history, including Ain't No Mountain High Enough and You're All I Need to Get By. They had incredible chemistry and were poised for even greater success, but their partnership was cut short by tragedy. In 1967, while performing on stage with Gaye, Tammy collapsed into his arms. Doctors discovered that she had a malignant brain tumor. For the next 3 years, she bravely endured multiple surgeries and treatments as she fought for her life. What many people don't know is that these medical procedures were incredibly expensive, and they completely drained her finances. Her illness left her unable to perform or record, so there was no money coming in. Motown reportedly helped with some of the bills, but it wasn't enough. When she passed away in 1970, at just 24 years old, Tammy Terrell had no estate to speak of. Her bright future was stolen by illness, which also took every dollar she had ever earned. Tammy Terrell was a teen star whose life ended too soon. Our next artist was also a teenage sensation, the original boy band leader, whose life took a dark turn that left him penniless. 18. Frankie Lymon. Long before the Jackson 5 or New Edition, there was Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers. In 1956, A 13-year-old Frankie Lymon became an overnight sensation with the smash hit Why Do Fools Fall in Love? His high, innocent voice and charming stage presence made him one of the first black teen idols. The group was a huge success, but it didn't last long. Frankie soon left the group for a solo career that never took off, but his biggest problem was a personal one. The thing nobody tells you is that at a very young age, he got involved with dangerous substances. By his late teens, he had a serious dependency problem that would control the rest of his short life. Any money he made was quickly spent. He tried to make several comebacks, but his personal issues always got in the way. He lost his home and was in and out of trouble. In 1968, at the age of 25, he was found in his grandmother's bathroom. His life tragically cut short by his long-standing addiction. The boy who had once been on top of the music world died with absolutely nothing. Frankie Lymon's solo career failed to launch, a fate that also befell our next artist, whose famous falsetto voice couldn't save him from obscurity after he left his legendary group. 19. Philippe Wynne. If you've ever listened to the classic 70-second soul group The Spinners, you have heard the magical falsetto voice of Philippe Wynne. You can spell his name Phil-Up Wynne. He was the lead singer on some of their biggest hits, like Could It Be I'm Falling in Love and The Rubber Band Man. His incredible vocal improvisations at the end of their songs, known as the Philippe, were his signature move. He was a dynamic and unforgettable frontman. In 1977, Wynne decided to leave the Spinners at the height of their fame to start a solo career. He believed he was destined for even bigger things on his own. Unfortunately, it was a huge miscalculation. His solo albums failed to sell, and he quickly faded from the public eye. What many overlooked is that without the fame of the Spinners, he struggled to find work. He ended up playing small clubs for very little money. The man who had once sung in front of thousands was now performing for just a handful of people. In 1984, while performing at a nightclub in Oakland, California, he suffered a massive heart attack on stage and passed away. The great voice of the Spinners died, broke, and in relative obscurity. Their songs are timeless, playing on the radio even today. But the stories behind these R&B legends are filled with shocking turns and heartbreaking ends that most people have never heard. Believe it or not, one of these stars passed away on stage, in the middle of a performance. We're revealing the untold stories, starting with a teenage prodigy who had the world at his feet before he even had a driver's license. 1. Frankie Lymon. Many people are crazy about the song Why Do Fools Fall in Love? It's a classic that sounds like pure joy and innocence. What many overlooked is the almost unbelievable story of the boy who sang it. Frankie Lymon was the lead singer of The Teenagers, and he was only 13 years old when that song became a massive international hit in 1956. Think about that for a second. At an age when most kids are worried about homework, Frankie was a global superstar. He was a pioneer, one of the very first black teen idols, with a powerful voice and amazing stage presence that captivated audiences everywhere. The thing nobody tells you is that the fame came too fast and was too much to handle. The group had a string of hits, but as Frankie's voice began to change with age, the magic started to fade. The music industry, which had built him up, quickly moved on to the next big thing. Frankie tried to launch a solo career, but he could never recapture that initial spark. He struggled for years, battling personal demons and trying to find his place in the world after being a superstar as a child. In 1968, at the shockingly young age of 25, Frankie Lymon's story came to a tragic end in the same New York neighborhood where he grew up. He was found in his grandmother's home, his incredible voice silenced forever. To lose a talent so young is a tragedy. But what happens when a star's life is cut short at the absolute peak of her powers while performing with one of music's biggest legends? 2. Tammy Terrell. When you hear the names Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell, you instantly think of some of the greatest duets ever recorded. Songs like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and You're All I Need to Get By are more than just songs. They are monuments of soul music. Tammy Terrell was the perfect musical partner for Marvin. She had a voice that was both powerful and sweet, and their chemistry was electric. They seemed destined to be a duo for the ages. But not all things are what they seem. Behind their joyful music, a heartbreaking drama was unfolding. In 1967, while performing on stage with Marvin in Virginia, Tammy suddenly collapsed into his arms. It was the first sign of a serious health issue. Doctors soon discovered a malignant tumor in her brain. To put it mildly, the diagnosis was devastating. For the next 3 years, she bravely endured multiple surgeries and treatments, all while trying to continue her recording career. The thing nobody tells you is that on some of her later recordings, she was in so much pain that her duet partner, Valerie Simpson, who also co-wrote the songs, secretly sang some of her parts to help finish the album. In 1970, after a long and courageous fight, Tammy Terrell passed away. She was only 24 years old, a brilliant star extinguished far too soon. Tammy was part of the Motown family, a label famous for its girl groups. But the story of one of the founding members of the biggest girl group of all time is perhaps the label's most tragic tale. 3. Florence Ballard. Everyone knows the Supremes. They were a global phenomenon, the most successful American vocal group in history, with 12 #1 hits. Most people remember Diana Ross as the lead singer and face of the group. What many have forgotten is that the Supremes started as a trio, and the group's original founder was a woman named Florence Ballard. In the beginning, Florence was considered the main singer, with a powerful, soulful voice that was stronger than Diana's. You see, as the group became more successful, Motown founder Berry Gordy decided to push Diana Ross to the front, giving her the lead vocals and renaming the group Diana Ross and the Supremes. Florence was pushed into the background. This decision caused a lot of tension within the group. Feeling sidelined and struggling with depression, Florence began to act out and was eventually fired from the very group she had started. It was a devastating blow. She tried to launch a solo career, but it never took off. She lost her fortune and ended up in a very difficult financial situation, a world away from the glamour of the Supremes. In 1976, just as she was starting to get her life back on track, Florence Ballard died suddenly from a cardiac event. She was only 32 years old, a cautionary tale of how cruel the music business can be. The pressures of fame can lead to heartbreaking ends. Our next artist was a musical genius, a writer and performer whose soulful voice could move anyone, but who fought a silent battle that ultimately consumed him. 4. Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway was a true musical prodigy. He was a brilliant songwriter, a gifted pianist, and a singer with a voice so rich and full of emotion it could make you cry. He wrote the Christmas classic, This Christmas, and recorded breathtaking duets with Roberta Flack, like Where Is the Love and The Closer I Get to You. He was a gentle giant of soul music, respected by everyone he worked with. His talent was immense, and his future seemed limitless. He had everything going for him. However, behind that incredible talent was a man engaged in a deep and painful struggle. Donny was diagnosed with serious mental health challenges that caused extreme mood swings and paranoia. This internal battle made it incredibly difficult for him to handle the pressures of the music industry. There were times he had to be hospitalized, and his career would stop and start. He was trying his best to manage his condition while creating some of the most beautiful music of the era. What many overlooked were the signs of his deep despair. In January 1979, Donny Hathaway's life came to a shocking end after he fell from the 15th floor window of his New York City hotel room. He was just 33 years old. The world lost a truly sensitive and brilliant soul. Donny Hathaway's voice was full of raw emotion. But our next artist had a voice that was something else entirely. A gift so unique it seemed almost superhuman. 5. Minnie Riperton. You know the song Lovin' You from 1975. It's a beautiful, gentle song famous for one incredible moment. A series of impossibly high notes that sound more like a bird than a human voice. The woman who could do that was Minnie Riperton. She possessed what is known as a 5-octave vocal range, an incredibly rare gift that allowed her to sing in the whistle register. She could produce notes so high they were almost beyond the range of human hearing. It was her signature, a true wow factor that made her stand out. But while she was hitting those angelic high notes and her career was soaring, Minnie was hiding a serious secret. In 1976, at the peak of her fame, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. The thing nobody tells you is that she was given only about 6 months to live. Instead of retreating from the public eye, she became one of the first celebrities to speak openly about her diagnosis, becoming a spokesperson for the American Cancer Society. She continued to tour and record music with incredible bravery and grace, even as her health declined. In 1979, just a few years after her biggest hit, Minnie Riperton passed away at the age of 31. She left behind a legacy of beautiful music and immense courage. Minnie's passing at 31 was a profound loss. But imagine the shock of an audience watching a beloved singer collapse and pass away right in front of their eyes. 6. Philip Wynne. The Spinners were one of the biggest soul groups of the 1970 seconds, with a string of hits like I'll Be Around, Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, and The Rubber Band Man. A huge part of their unique sound was the incredible lead singer, Philip Wynne. He had a mesmerizing tenor voice and was a master of ad-libs and vocal runs. He was a dynamic and captivating performer who poured every ounce of his energy into his live shows. He was the heart and soul of the group during their golden era. After leaving the Spinners for a solo career, he eventually found a new home as the lead singer for another group, Bootsy's Rubber Band. He continued to be a powerful force on stage, known for his intense performances. But in July 1984, something unthinkable happened. While performing at a nightclub in Oakland, California, in the middle of a song, Philip Wynne suffered a massive heart attack and collapsed on stage. The audience and his bandmates watched in horror as medical personnel rushed to help him, but it was too late. He passed away right there, at the age of 43. Having spent his final moments doing what he loved most, it was a shocking and public end to a spectacular career. A sudden passing on stage is a terrible shock. The next artist on our list was a trailblazer who broke down barriers, only to be taken by a devastating illness that was sweeping the nation. 7. Sylvester. Long before artists felt free to be their true selves, there was Sylvester. Known as the Queen of Disco, Sylvester was a force of nature. With his powerful, soaring falsetto voice and his flamboyant, gender-bending style, he was an icon of the disco era and a hero in the gay community. His songs, You Make Me Feel, Mighty Real, and Dance Disco Heat were massive club anthems that defined an era of freedom and celebration. He was bold, unapologetic, and incredibly talented. What many overlooked was his tireless work as an activist. As a mysterious and frightening virus began to affect his community in the 1980 seconds, Sylvester used his fame to raise awareness and funds for research. The thing nobody tells you is that he knew the fight was personal. He was diagnosed with the virus himself, and as his health began to fail, he became even more open about his condition. A remarkably brave act at a time when there was so much fear and misinformation. He planned his own memorial service and made sure his music royalties would continue to support charities after he was gone. In 1988, Sylvester passed away from complications related to the virus. He was only 41, a true pioneer who sang for joy and fought for life. Sylvester's activism was heroic. Our next artist was another powerful voice who commanded the stage with her presence, but her story ended with a heartbreaking and deeply personal choice. 8. Phyllis Hyman. Phyllis Hyman was elegance personified. She was a stunningly beautiful woman, standing over 6 feet tall, with a deep, sultry voice that was pure class. She was a sophisticated soul and jazz singer who had a string of hits in the late 70 seconds and 80 seconds, including You Know How to Love Me and Living All Alone. She was also a talented actress, earning a Tony Award nomination for her work on Broadway in the musical Sophisticated Ladies. She had a loyal fan base that adored her incredible talent and regal stage presence. But behind that confident exterior was a woman struggling with deep emotional pain. For many years, Phyllis battled with bipolar disorder and depression, a struggle she often kept hidden from the public. To put it mildly, the music business can be a tough and lonely place, and for a sensitive artist like Phyllis, the ups and downs were difficult to bear. She poured all of her pain and passion into her music, but her personal battles were relentless. In 1995, just hours before she was scheduled to perform at the famous Apollo Theater in New York, Phyllis Hyman made the tragic choice to end her own life. She was only 45 years old, leaving behind a note for her fans and family, a final sad farewell from a truly majestic voice. The loss of a great singer is one thing, but what about the loss of the man who created the very sound that made so many singers famous? 9. Bernard Edwards. You may not know the name Bernard Edwards, but you absolutely know his music. As the bassist and co-founder of the band Chic, he was one half of one of the most important production duos in music history, alongside his partner Nile Rodgers. Together, they invented the sound of sophisticated disco and funk. That iconic bass line in Good Times, that was Bernard. He also wrote and produced massive hits for other artists, like We Are Family for Sister Sledge and I'm Coming Out for Diana Ross. His influence is everywhere. In April 1996, Bernard was in Japan to perform a series of concerts celebrating the legacy of Chic. He was excited to be there, sharing the music he had created with fans on the other side of the world. After one of the shows in Tokyo, he went back to his hotel room, not feeling well. Tragically, he passed away in his sleep that night from a sudden and severe case of pneumonia. He was only 43 years old. The thing nobody tells you is that his partner, Nile Rodgers, found him the next day. Bernard Edwards was the quiet genius behind the groove, the man who created the soundtrack for a generation, and his sudden passing was a massive loss to the music world. Bernard's passing was sudden and unexpected. The next story is far more shocking, involving a musical innovator whose life was cut short by a dark and violent family conflict. 10. Roger Troutman. If you've ever heard a song with a funky, robotic-sounding voice, you've heard the work of Roger Troutman. He was the leader of the band Zapp and a true musical innovator. His signature was his masterful use of the talk box, an effects pedal that allowed him to make his voice sound like a synthesizer. He perfected this sound on hits like More Bounce to the Ounce and Computer Love. His unique style was a huge influence on funk, R&B, and West Coast hip-hop for decades to come. The story of his passing is one of the most shocking and tragic in music history. Roger and his older brother Larry had been in business together for years, but their relationship had become very strained. There were arguments over money and control of the band. On a Sunday morning in April 1999, in their hometown of Dayton, Ohio, this long, simmering feud exploded. A terrible and violent dispute between the two brothers ended with both of their lives being lost. Roger was found in his car a short distance from their recording studio, having been shot several times. Larry was found in his own car nearby with a single self-inflicted wound. Roger was only 47, an innovator silenced by an unthinkable family tragedy. That story is a dark chapter in music history. Our next artist came from an R&B royal family, but even that couldn't protect him from a tragically early end. 11. Gerald Levert. Gerald Levert was born into R&B greatness. His father, Eddie Levert, was the lead singer of the legendary group The O'Jays. Gerald followed in his father's footsteps, first as the lead singer of the group Levert, who had the huge hit Casanova, and then as a hugely successful solo artist. He had a powerful, gospel-inflected voice and a knack for writing soulful ballads. He was also part of the supergroup LSG. Alongside Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill, he was a constant presence on the R&B charts throughout the 90s and early 2000s. Gerald was known for his incredible work ethic, constantly writing, producing, and performing. But that demanding lifestyle may have taken a toll on his health. He suffered from anxiety, and had been prescribed medication to deal with it, along with medication for pain from a shoulder injury. In November 2006, he was found unresponsive in his bed at his home in Cleveland, Ohio. An official report later revealed that his passing was the result of a fatal and accidental combination of prescribed and over-the-counter medications. He was only 40 years old, a prince of R&B taken far too soon, leaving a huge void in the world of soul music. Gerald Levert carried on a family legacy, but the next artist on our list broke barriers as a white artist who was fully embraced by the black music community, a true queen of soul. 12. Teena Marie. Teena Marie was a one-of-a-kind talent, a white singer-songwriter who was signed to the legendary Motown label in the 1970 seconds. She was a true R&B artist through and through. She was a protege of the funk legend Rick James, and together they created the classic duet Fire and Desire. But she was a star in her own right, with a powerful, soulful voice and incredible songwriting skills. She wrote and produced her own music, a rarity for female artists at the time. Hits like Lover Girl, Square Biz, and Ooh La 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 made her a beloved icon, earning her the nickname the Ivory Queen of Soul. She was a fiery and passionate performer who continued to make music and tour for her devoted fans for over 3 decades. Her career was a testament to her immense talent and her genuine love for the music. The thing nobody tells you is that she had been dealing with seizures in the last years of her life. In December 2010, the day after Christmas, Teena Marie was found by her daughter at her home in Pasadena, California. She had passed away in her sleep after suffering a grand mal seizure. She was only 54, and her sudden passing sent shockwaves through the R&B community, which had lost one of its most authentic and beloved voices. Teena Marie was a powerful female voice in R&B. The next artist was a gentle giant of the genre, a man whose upbeat energy and positive vibes made him a crossover star. 13. Heavy D. Heavy D, born Dwight Arrington Myers, was the overweight lover, the charismatic and good-humored frontman of the group Heavy D and the Boys. In the late 80 seconds and early 90 seconds, he created a unique blend of R&B, new jack swing, and hip-hop. With massive hits like Now That We Found Love and Is It Good to You, he brought a smooth, positive energy to the charts. He was known for his impressive dance moves despite his large size, and his music was all about fun, love, and respect. He was a truly beloved figure in the industry. After his group's success, he went on to have a successful acting career, appearing in movies and television shows. He also became a respected record executive, helping to guide the careers of other artists. He seemed to have made a perfect transition from performer to businessman. But in November 2011, after returning to his Beverly Hills home from a shopping trip, he suddenly had trouble breathing. He collapsed on a walkway and was rushed to the hospital. But it was too late. An official report found that he had passed away from a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in his lung. He was only 44 years old, and the sudden loss of this gentle giant left a huge hole in the hearts of his fans. Heavy D's loss was a shock. The next story is even more heartbreaking, involving a young artist from a popular girl group whose life ended in a sudden, tragic accident. 14. Natina Reed. In the late 1990 seconds, the girl group Block stormed the R&B and pop charts. The trio, mentored by Lisa Left Eye Lopes of TLC, had a string of hits, including 808 and Bring It All to Me. The rapper and songwriter of the group was Natina Reed. She was the fiery, energetic spark plug of the group, known for her bold lyrics and charismatic personality. She also had success as an actress, appearing in the hit cheerleading movie Bring It On. Blake was poised for long-term success, a fresh new voice in the world of R&B. But, you see, the group's momentum slowed in the early 2000s, and they eventually went their separate ways. Natina took time away from the spotlight to focus on her family and personal life, though she was reportedly working on new music and a group reunion. Her story took a devastating turn in October 2012, just 2 days before her 33rd birthday. While walking across a highway late at night in a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, she was struck by a car. It was a terrible and tragic accident that cut her life short. Her passing was a shock to fans who remembered her vibrant energy and hoped for a comeback from the talented artist. So many of these stories are about artists taken too young. But in the last year, the R&B world has quietly lost a whole generation of its founding fathers and mothers. Legends whose names you might not have heard in a while. 15. Brenton Wood. Let's talk about a classic. The song, the Oogum Boogum Song from 1967, is pure feel-good soul music. The man behind that quirky and unforgettable hit was Brenton Wood. With his smooth, sweet voice and his dapper style, Brenton Wood carved out a special place for himself in the world of R&B. He had another huge hit with the romantic ballad Gimme Little Sign. His music had a timeless, laid-back charm that made him a favorite on oldies radio stations and a beloved figure in the lowrider and soul music communities for decades. Unlike many artists from his era, Brenton Wood never stopped performing. He continued to tour and connect with his dedicated fans well into his 82nd, his voice still as smooth as ever. He was a true gentleman of soul, a living link to a golden era of music. What many overlooked was just how long he had been sharing his gift with the world. In early 2025, after a long and incredible life dedicated to music, Brenton Wood passed away from natural causes at the age of 83. His passing marked the quiet end of an era for a true soul original. Brenton Wood was a solo artist with a unique style. The next legend we lost was one half of arguably the most electrifying duo in the history of soul music. 16. Sam Moore. When you think of high-energy, sweat-drenched, pure soul music, you have to think of Sam and Dave, and the voice that powered that duo was the legendary Sam Moore. Known as the Double Dynamite Duo, their live shows were the stuff of legend. With classic hits like Hold On, I'm Comin', I Thank You, and the immortal anthem Soul Man, they defined the Stax Records sound. Sam's raw, powerful, gospel-trained voice was the engine of the group. He was the original soul man. After the duo split, Sam continued on a long and celebrated solo career. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and was recognized as one of the greatest singers of all time. He was a tireless performer and an ambassador for soul music, collaborating with countless artists over the years. The thing nobody tells you is that this icon of soul music was still with us until very recently. In the summer of 2025, at the age of 89, the legendary Sam Moore passed away peacefully, following complications from a recent surgery. The world lost one of its most powerful and influential voices, the man who taught everyone what it meant to be a soul man. Sam Moore was all fire and energy, but the next R&B icon we lost was known for his smooth, cool demeanor, earning him one of the best nicknames in music. 17. Jerry Butler. They called him the Iceman. Jerry Butler earned that nickname for his cool, calm, and sophisticated stage presence and his incredibly smooth baritone voice. His career started back in the 1952 as the original lead singer of the influential vocal group The Impressions. He wrote and sang lead on their very first hit, the hauntingly beautiful ballad For Your Precious Love. That song is considered one of the cornerstones of soul music. After leaving The Impressions, he launched a hugely successful solo career that lasted for decades. He had massive hits like Only the Strong Survive and the duet Ain't Understanding Mellow. What many overlooked is his life after his music career. He became a respected politician in his home city of Chicago, serving as a Cook County Commissioner for over 30 years. He dedicated his life to public service after his time in the spotlight. In 2025, after a long battle with Parkinson's disease, the legendary Iceman, Jerry Butler, passed away at the age of 85. He was a true pioneer of soul music and a dedicated public servant. From the Iceman to a queen of funk, Our next artist created a song so infectious, it has been a party starter for nearly 50 years. 18. Gwen McCrae. If you've ever been to a party or a wedding, you have definitely danced to the song Rockin' Chair. It's an absolute funk and R&B classic with a groove that is impossible to resist. The powerful, soulful voice behind that timeless hit belonged to Gwen McCrae. Though she was often considered a one-hit wonder by the mainstream, she was a true icon in the world of soul, funk, and disco music. She had a long career with many other beloved songs that were huge hits in clubs and on R&B radio. Her music was especially popular in Europe, and she was a favorite artist for DJs to sample, meaning her voice has lived on through countless hip-hop and dance tracks. She was a powerhouse singer, with a voice that could be both gritty and sweet. After a career that spanned decades and brought joy to dance floors around the world, Gwen McCrae passed away in 2025 at the age of 81. Her passing was a quiet one, but it was a great loss for all the fans of pure, feel-good funk music. Gwen McCrae gave us a funk classic, but our next star was part of a group that created one of the most iconic romantic ballads of all time, a song that defined an entire era of doo-wop. 19. Tommy Hunt. Let's go back to 1959. A song comes on the radio that sounds like it's from another world. It's dreamy, romantic, and utterly magical. That song was I Only Have Eyes for You, and the group that sang it was the Flamingos. The beautiful, soaring lead vocal on that timeless classic belonged to Tommy Hunt. That song has been called one of the greatest recordings of all time. A perfect moment in music history. The Flamingos were one of the most elegant and polished vocal groups of their time, and Tommy Hunt was their star tenor. But not all things are what they seem. After leaving the group, Tommy had a difficult time in the music business in America. So, he made a bold move. He relocated to England in the 1972 and became a massive star in the UK's northern soul scene, a subculture that celebrated rare American R&B records. He had a whole second career and was beloved by a new generation of fans overseas. In 2025, after a long and fascinating life in music on both sides of the Atlantic, Tommy Hunt passed away at the age of 86. He left behind a legacy as the voice of one of the most perfect love songs ever made. Tommy Hunt was a voice from soul music's past. Our final artist was a key member of a band that gave us one of the most beloved wedding songs of the 1980s. 20. Wayne Lewis. Every wedding, every anniversary, every school dance in the 80s and 90s had one song on the playlist. Always by Atlantic Starr. It is one of the most iconic romantic duets of its generation. A timeless ballad about everlasting love. Atlantic Starr was a huge R&B band with a string of hits, but Always was their masterpiece. One of the co-founders and key members of that band was the multi-talented Wayne Lewis. He was a keyboardist, a vocalist, and a leader of the band through all of its biggest successes. Atlantic Starr was a true family band, originally formed by Wayne and his two brothers. They created a smooth, polished R&B sound that defined an era. After the height of their fame, the band continued to tour and perform for decades, bringing their classic love songs to audiences all over the world. The thing nobody tells you is that these legacy bands often continue to work tirelessly long after they've left the pop charts. In the fall of 2025, it was announced that the co-founder of the group behind Always, Wayne Lewis, had passed away at the age of 68, leaving behind a legacy of music that will forever be a part of people's most cherished memories.